Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. I believe that podcasting can be one of the most powerful ways to grow your business and also one of the most enjoyable things you do in your business. What a win-win, right? But for many podcasters, the dream of growing your business doesn't happen with your show because you don't have the right strategies and techniques in place, both from a marketing and systems perspective. Or maybe it's not enjoyable like you thought it would be because you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off when it comes to your content and production. Podcasting is a lot of work, and I would say that not many people set you up for that expectation when they talk about how amazing podcasting is, but to do it well, it does take time and systems. So for me though, it is a lot of work, and it's a lot of moving pieces, but it's also my number one lead generation source for my business. Podcasting and SEO are the top two ways people find me, and guess what? The great SEO on my website has to do primarily because of podcasting and all the blog posts I'm putting out. And it truly is the joy of my business, even 4 years later into doing it. Something that, like, if I were to drop something in my business, it would never be this. It's just something I truly, truly love. So today, though, I want to talk about systems with podcasting to save you time and energy. Because if you're going to love podcasting, if you're going to stick with it, you need some passion for it, but you also need some systems in place because, like I said, podcasting is a lot of moving pieces. And I believe the number one reason people quit on their show is because they cannot keep up with all the stuff, all the moving pieces. It becomes too much work with everything else you're managing in your business. And it is doable though. It's doable with all the systems and doing all the things and really making your show like a number one lead source for you, even without being the best, top, biggest podcast in the world. So I'm personally someone who loves systems. You may have realized that from listening to the show for a while. And I love creating strong systems and processes in my own business. And I also like talking to other people about their systems in their own business. So that all works out well for me. But whether you're a systems person or not, I want to help you make it work for you too, even if you feel like this is not like a strong suit for you in your business. So I'm going to share 3 specific systems that I have in my business, some from day one of podcasting and some that came, maybe a year or so into it. I think most of these I've been doing the whole time though. I'll kind of share that as I go, but that really helped me save time with this show so that I can do all the other things I do in my business while not working 40 hours a week. If you didn't know, I work about 20 to 25 hours a week in my business, and that has been true for about 2 years now. And even before then, I wasn't working a full 40 hours a week, but I'm still putting out this show every week, run a multiple six-figure-a-year business, make a multiple six-figure-a-year salary myself. So it's all doable. So before we get to the content, I want to quickly say that I am actually in the process of creating a course for podcasters all about scaling, monetizing, and growing your show to make it make sense in your business, making great systems for your podcast, organization, recording skills, outlining skills, creating great content, making it revolve around your launch as well. So many great things, and also some basics about getting your show up and running. I'll share more about it at the end of the episode, so hang around to hear that if you want to really hear me dive into hey, what is this course and who it's for. But you can also go to elizabethmccravey.com/podcast-course to get info on it. On that page, you'll be able to sign up for the waitlist. I am going to do a beta launch with this mid-October where there will be limited spots, a discount on the course price, and then also some really, really strong, you're going to want these kind of bonuses with it for buying during the beta round. So if that interests you at all, definitely get on the waitlist. And you can also fill out that survey to tell me a little bit about what you want out of the course. And And I'll share more at the end of this episode. And I also shared about it a few episodes back if you want to go listen to that for a lot more details. But anyway, I'm super, super stoked about this coming mid-October. Okay, now let's get into the 3 systems I use to save me time and energy in my podcast. So first one, I am always generating podcast ideas, and this is a system. I'm going to explain how it's a system, not just a statement, but basically the system is that I keep ideas everywhere and I'm always thinking of new episode ideas. And that might sound stressful when you hear that of like, wow, always thinking of new episode ideas. That sounds like a lot. And I promise it's not, but life experience and random moments in your day give you ideas. And so I jot those ideas down. In ClickUp, we actually have an ideas bank area for the podcast where like they're all sorted into categories of like, hey, an idea to do a podcast about this. Sometimes they have like a little description where we're like writing in like, here are the like points we'd make. But most ideas start as a note on my phone's note app. You have to do what works best for you, but that works well for me because inspiration hits me at all hours of the day. And I often get my best solo episode ideas or interview ideas when I'm not working. It happens when I'm on a walk, when I'm in the shower, when I'm having a meaningful conversation with a friend, when I'm doing my quiet time, reading a random book, playing with Colin, out running errands, just driving in the car. The ideas rarely hit me when I'm sitting at my computer working. So I recommend having a spot that's always with you just to jot ideas into. And it might be an idea for a solo episode. It might be an idea for someone you want to interview or a topic you want to find someone to interview you about on your own podcast. And I'll be real, my note system is not super organized. The other systems you're going to hear me talk about are. But this system isn't. And I actually really like that it's not because it feels really creative to me. Like it's all very searchable. I have a separate note for every idea. That's why I say it's not very organized, but it works really great for me. And I would just say find out what works for you, but I cannot recommend enough having a designated place on your phone for your ideas to go. And I say phone over something like a notebook or something like, your project management system because your phone's always with you. Your notes app is always right there. And this helps with systems because honestly, I think this might be shocking to some people, but even after 230 podcast episodes or whatever number I'm at now, I do not have moments where I need to record something and I have zero inspiration for what to talk about. And this podcast is mainly solo episodes. So like that says a lot. That in this many episodes, I haven't been like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to talk about. It just doesn't happen to me. And I don't think that's because I'm like super, super special with content. I think it's a combination of the fact that I cover a lot of topics on this show. So I could talk about a variety of things that fall under the realm of business and it all work, which is helpful. But also that I'm seeking inspiration at every corner in my life and then jotting ideas down. So anytime it's time for me to record something and maybe I am like, I don't know what I should do these next episodes on. I just look at my phone. I'm like, oh yeah, like this is a great idea. Let me do this. So that is my first system. The Notes app on my phone is my giant ideas bank. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. The second podcast system, and this is one that's very organized, is that we have a very built out podcast system in ClickUp. And this is where the meat of like the systems lie for me. And it's incredibly robust. I had a similar system built out before I used ClickUp when I was on Basecamp. And then before Basecamp, I was on Trello and I just did this there too. So I say that to say, you can do what I'm about to share with any project management tool, but I would highly recommend if you run a podcast using a project management tool to manage your show, because like I said, it's a lot of moving parts. And hey, what's making podcasters quit? Because it's so many moving parts and it can be kind of overwhelming. So we have a whole podcasting area in ClickUp with a task for every episode, like a big overarching task that's just the episode number and title. And if I don't know what the number is going to be yet, then I put 0x:. And those tasks move through stages and areas in that ClickUp area, depending on where they are. So like, is it on deck to be recorded, but I haven't started on it yet? Is it in progress? Is it a raw episode that's already been recorded, but we aren't going to work on it yet because we don't know what number it's going to be? Is it in editing mode by my editor? Is it scheduled for release? Has it already been published? These are all areas the episode moves through. And I also have within ClickUp a clear way for me to look at my podcast calendar holistically on a calendar view where I can see, okay, every Tuesday, like here's what's airing. And that's really helpful because I can see what's upcoming. And I might realize, oh wait, I'm talking about website design way too much. Let's switch it for this interview about content creation and then save this episode about web design for like 3 weeks later. Or this is a strategy part of making your show work for you, but I'm doing a template sale on this date. So I'm going to put an episode during that week that relates to templates. And then the week prior before that sale, I'm going to do another episode that relates to design to get people kind of in that headspace and get people who are interested in this topic listening to my show so that I can put an ad about my own product during the sale week in that episode. See all the strategy? There's a lot that goes into when I'm airing things. It's not just random based on inspiration. So each episode, so like I said, there's a main task, right? And then each episode task has 8 main subtasks for interviews and then 4 main subtasks for solo shows because and interviews have more moving pieces than a solo episode. And then within each of those 8 subtasks, there are a total of 36 subtasks for interviews and a total of 17 for solo episodes. So a lot of steps back on how podcasting is a system and process, and there's a lot of moving pieces. And if you hear that and you're thinking, Elizabeth, your ClickUp system for your show sounds really amazing. I would say it is. And again, I've been doing a version of this since the very beginning of my podcast, and it has gotten to a point where now it's so nicely systematized that I am not running around frantically ever managing my show after all these years. It's like I can easily look on, actually it syncs to my Apple Calendar too, so I can see what's happening there. But it all is just like right there, and we can all see at any point like what needs to be done, what's happening with the show. So if that sounds like something where you're like, that sounds really helpful, cool news. In the podcasting course that I mentioned that I'm working on, you're actually in that course going to get my exact podcast system as a ClickUp template that you can literally just download. You actually don't even have to download. It's like via a link, but you can just add it to your own ClickUp account. And there's also a Notion version of this template as well. So if you use Notion instead, you can use that template version. And then if you use something else besides the 2 of those, that's fine too, because I'm going to have a tutorial where I'm walking you through like, hey, here's this step, here's what it means, so you can adapt it to your own project manager. And if I have a lot of people in the course who are on something besides ClickUp or Notion, I might also just make it into another template version to make sure there's options for you guys. So I'm really pumped to include this in the course though, because I really do think this is like game changing, business changing for your show. And of course you can edit it and adapt it all for your needs and the way you and your team and your brains work. But we've been using this exact ClickUp system for, I guess, a little over a year now. And again, we've been doing this for years, all the years of my podcast on different platforms, but the ClickUp ones we've used about a year. And I feel like we truly perfected it. And it also has YouTube steps as well because we put interviews on YouTube. So if you're like, hey, I use YouTube, that will be in there. And we've like as a team really worked on like making sure everything's clear and the steps are clear. And my team for the podcast has given input on like, let's change this, let's do that. So anyway, if you're like, tell me more, go to elizabethmccravy.com/podcast-course. And there you can join the waitlist for the new course and you can fill out the survey, like I said, with what you want to learn. And I'm going to be beta launching in October with limited spots at a reduced price with some bonuses as well. So if you know you want this or you think you might be interested in more info, definitely sign up for that wait list. Okay, the third system, and this is one that's very exciting to me, is that I have a strong system for promotion for episodes to maximize the effort of podcasting. So here's something not many people tell you about podcasting, but again, it's going to be the focus of this course and should be a focus of your show, which is why I want to teach it. So many podcast courses don't even focus on promoting your show beyond the generic, like here's how to make a graphic, here's how to write a blog post. But here's what I'm going to tell you about my show. My show, this podcast, the Breakthrough Brand Podcast, is the center of our content hub for the business. So everything I do, marketing wise, generally speaking, I definitely create content that doesn't have to do with this podcast exactly, but everything I do marketing wise, generally speaking, stems from the episodes that air on this show. So to kind of explain what I mean by that, each episode does all these things in this list I'm about to read to you, with the exception of sometimes like one not happening if it's a solo or interview, because I do slightly different things for each of those. So every episode has a blog post, a YouTube video of the interview, if it was an interview, YouTube shorts with clips from the interview, a reel with either clips from the interview or me talking about the episode or showing something to like promote it if it was a solo episode. TikTok videos doing the same, which I have not been that consistent with, but something I'm working on, but like we're putting it on TikTok and like I just said, YouTube and on Instagram. Facebook post about the episode to my page, usually not using video, but using like a still graphic. Facebook group post about the episode in my podcast Facebook group. A LinkedIn post about the episode, which is slightly different than the Facebook one. Stories on Instagram, multiple times promoting the episode. I promote each episode about twice, at least one time, sometimes two, sometimes more times around the time it airs. And then I'll continue to promote episodes after as well. Pinterest pins about the episode. We're making about 10 to 15 pins per episode that then go and get scheduled out on Pinterest. Something I'm starting on but have not done consistently, but is an email to my entire email list sharing about the episode. And that would happen for both interviews and solos. And then if it's a guest interview, the guest is also sharing about it. And we're sometimes creating a co-reel where we are both like collaborating on it, that's sharing about the episode. And often more social media content just based on that one episode where I might not even say anything about the episode because I'm actually not trying to promote it, but I'm pulling from that content. So when I'm making like a TikTok or a reel and I'm teaching something, I might literally go to my own blog and be like, okay, I'm trying to teach something on this topic. Let me like see what I've written about on this. And then I will pick one of the points and talk about it. So it's like you just use it for content in all the ways. Now, all those things I just listed, I've not always done all of those. Some of those are ones we added literally just this year. And then some of those things did not even exist when I first started my show. Like when I first started, I don't even think IGTV was a thing yet, but then that came onto the market for a while. And so at one point we were actually making IGTV videos promoting interviews. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So things have changed a lot. And some of those things I may cut in the future. Like I may decide that LinkedIn isn't really worth it. That's kind of something we're trying out because it's just a little bit more effort to do these things. But as you can see from like hearing that, I'm making one thing, one episode. This is one episode. And it becomes around 12 different things, 12 different content pieces in my business, which is pretty insane when you think about it. But we have great systems in place. Like I was saying, even with that ClickUp system, where like I'm basically starting the chain of events by recording the episode, and then everything happens from there on a great timeline until it's done and promoted everywhere. And these are like the ways that this podcast is the number one lead gen source for my business and how it's something I super, super enjoy. So those are the three ways. And there's more, obviously more systems, but those were three that all felt a little bit different, and things that you can like implement today that I wanted to share with you. And again, this is a big part of the course I'm creating. So to recap those three different systems though, so you can think about how to implement these into your own podcast or future podcasts. But one is always be generating podcast ideas. And guys, if you're thinking about starting a show, start with that. Like in your notes app, just start whenever you get hit with an idea for something you'd like to talk about, jot it down. And then when you actually start your show, you'll have a whole bank of ideas. And if you're thinking you'll do primarily an interview show, it can be ideas for things you want to interview someone about. Second thing, we have a very built out ClickUp system for the podcast with all those steps I was saying. And then third thing, we have a strong system for promotion to maximize the effort of a show. So that is it. Think about which one you want to work on implementing in your own business. And again, please go join the waitlist for the podcast course if you want more on this. The course is for new podcasters and established podcasters alike. So I will cover some of the basic beginner stuff like getting your show distributed, figuring out your niche, your artwork, your title, and things like that. But the bigger focus of the course is going to be on monetizing your podcast and also like systems around like, hey, how to do really great solo episodes, from outlining to recording, strategies behind it, how to develop a podcast voice and keep your voice fresh for your show, interview skills, getting your guests to actually share about the interview after, and all the marketing stuff, like all the things I just talked about that I'm doing to make this show like maximize my efforts with it. I'm going to teach you that. We'll also talk about hiring and your team around podcasting and how to make that work in your business. So many things. So an interesting stat I wanted to share with you though, there are 2.5 million podcasts listed in Apple Podcasts. And that's actually a slightly old stat. So it might be even more than that now, which is a ton of podcasts. But only around 450,000 podcasts are actually active. So despite the fact that there's so many, only about 20% of podcasts are considered active podcast. And again, I think it's like that's kind of what an emphasis this course is even is like, I think the problem for people is not getting their podcast live. It's not getting those first 2 or 3 episodes live. It's keeping going and keeping it an active show so that you can actually see results from it. And I think the reason people stop podcasts is because it's a lot of work. Like we're saying, it's a lot of steps, a lot of strategy. But also you might not be seeing results. Like you're kind of feel like you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and you're like, hey, I'm doing this, but people aren't buying from me more. People aren't booking me more. I get a sponsorship offer that's like $50 and that's not worth it. Like you're kind of feeling like it's just not worth it. So I want to help you make it worth it and make podcasting make sense in your business so that's both enjoyable and an actual money making thing that is generating revenue for your business, which is what my podcast has been for me. And an emphasis in this course as well, when we talk about monetization, which is going to be a huge focus of it, I am going to talk about pitching yourself to brands to do ads and sponsors and like payment for that and, having a media kit. I'll show you all of that kind of stuff. But a bigger part that I want to talk about even more is, like I just said, pushing your own products, because that actually can make you more money in the long run than just talking about someone else's stuff. So pushing your own things and also pushing affiliates. So fun fact for me, you guys have heard me talk about this before, but I do a lot of affiliate marketing in my business. It's something I'm super, super passionate about, maybe a future course topic, who knows. But I'm one of the top affiliates for 3 different major software companies that you see used in online business. I'm not going to name which ones exactly, but you might be able to guess. And most of that is coming from this podcast. So it's just like becoming the top affiliate, like corresponds to like me growing this podcast and talking about those tools on it. And that's been huge for my business. So anyway, I'm starting to just ramble, but I'm just, as you can hopefully tell, so excited about this course. ElizabethMcCravy.com/podcast-course. Name, of course, coming before the beta launch. But go get info there, get on the wait list. And if you have questions about it, feel free to email me. And also, if you're thinking like, Elizabeth, please cover this one specific thing, go fill out the survey, which is linked at the bottom of that page. And you can give me feedback on what you want to learn. And taking the survey also will put you on the wait list. So that is it, friends. I'll be back next week with another fun episode. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast and all the way until the end. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to encourage you to check out my website where you'll find tons of resources to help you grow a profitable and sustainable business. Over on ElizabethMcCravy.com, you'll find free workbooks to help you figure out things like the best headline for your sales page. There's a freebie with my favorite journal prompts to start your day with, a guide on website essentials for all you coaches, and so much more. And you'll find my top business tools. Yes, I literally list out all the major ones for you on my website, and there are tons of special discounts and offers for you guys to snag as you try these products and services. You'll also find the main ways to work with me. First, through my Showit website template shop that helps you DIY your way to a strategic website for your business. These website templates are easy to use, they're gorgeously designed, and they have all the strategy I'm teaching on this podcast just woven into them, and I have a feeling you'll really love them. You'll also find my course and coaching program for designers, Booked Out Designer. In this program, I teach you everything I did to build an in-demand design business so that you can create a thriving business for yourself as a brand or website designer. So if all of that interests you, go to ElizabethMcCravy.com. To access those tools and free downloads, head to the tools page at ElizabethMcCravy.com/tools. And to see the different ways to work with me, simply click over to the Ways to Work Together page. I hope you have so much fun exploring everything over there. And don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And leaving a rating and review for the show, sharing it with a friend, sharing it on social media are all great ways for you to support this podcast. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again next week.